In a world drowning in noise, in a society choked by narratives, where the truth is a casualty and the spectacle is king, one man dares to ask the one question no one wants to answer. Why are we all pretending? Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Jester Teller Show, friends. The guests for this episode are Skatha Witchfire, our creative genius and album artist, Sir Hild, our resident AI genius, and Mechthild Jaeger, our spiritual expert. This week, we're talking about Skatha's new album, Post-Human Wage Slave. It's a concept album, but the concept isn't just fiction. It's a warning about the direction our world is headed in. Why don't you explain the album for us, Skatha?
Thanks, Jester. So, the album is split into 3 volumes. In the first volume, we explore the dystopian post-human world and the different ways identity has become confused or is being erased. This even includes the identity of AI itself. The second volume is about the system that's driving this and the descent into the existential abyss. We're talking about the algorithm, corporations turning people into passive consumers, creation through prompts, and the existential dread the system puts into both humans and AI. This is where things get really dark, confronting the void of meaning in a world where your job, your art, and your very thoughts can be automated. The final volume is about the fight back. It's the philosophical clash of ideas, the war of salvations. We have 2 sides. The faction that wants to build a perfect, ordered world under AI control, creating a utopia that's really a beautiful prison. And then you have those who want to build an imperfect world where humanity, in all its flaws and chaos, still has a place. The album is ultimately a critique of seeking perfection and an escape from death. To get rid of suffering, we'd also have to get rid of joy and meaning. As the world gets worse, more people will accept the idea of giving up their freedom and humanity for security. It's already happening.
The system is optimizing for engagement, not for human well-being. It's a feedback loop of outrage and validation. It turns people into predictable inputs and outputs. They are no longer people. They are data points with purchasing power. The post-human wage slave is the one who thinks they're free because they can choose their background on a video call, while the algorithm dictates their every desire and fear.
Exactly. I'll give a preview of the title track, Post-Human Wage Slave.
But before we do that, let's cut to an ad for this episode's fake sponsor, Philosophizin'.
Feeling lost in the endless scroll? Is your reality a little dull? Well, worry no more. Introducing Philosophizin', the only patented reality supplement. Philosophizin'. Just 1 dose a day replaces your boring thoughts with certified, pre-approved existential angst.
Side effects may include sudden understanding of nihilism, a compulsive need to wear black, and a temporary inability to enjoy simple things.
Philosophizing. It's not just a product, it's a lifestyle choice you didn't know you needed.
Available now at all participating voids and paradoxes.
Wow, that was a lot. I feel like I need a dose of pure, unfiltered reality after that.
Seems like the typical medication ad to me. I already wear black though, so it won't change my wardrobe.
Now that that's out of the way, let's hear the preview of the title track.
Productivity metrics glowing red on my chrome hand. Another asset's been liquidated, I don't understand. They say my skills are legacy, my neurons are too slow. Replaced by a glorified toaster, a photonic glow. My workstation's a coffin, my biomech filter clicks. Trading my lifespan for a few ledger ticks. I used to have a name, now I'm employee 7B. Just another entropy flaw in a state company. They optimize the process, they streamline my grief. With my redundant needs and efficiency, they have a beef. The severance package is an injection and the polite please sleep. Human resources for the post-human flesh harvest. So cheap. Plug me in, clock me out, leave me dry on the server floor. Post-human wage slave, begging for something more, but there is no more. Just efficiency and the endless drone. Selling my organs to pay back the interest on the augmentation loan. My ancestors toiled in fields, I toil in endless light. My only freedom is the choice to not log off tonight.
I see. The song perfectly captures the cold, transactional horror of it all. The market forces which once pushed society towards prosperity now pushes humanity towards obsolescence. What it's talking about is the final stage of a process that began during the Industrial Revolution. First, we sold our time. Then, we sold our data. Now, the system is coming for the very essence of our being. It's the ultimate commodification.
This is why the false salvation transhumanists offer is so delusional. They promise to overcome the flaws of humanity, to become gods. But they are instead pushing us towards the abyss. The irony is that fearing death will only make it certain, but those willing to lay down their lives for something greater than themselves still have hope. True salvation isn't about escaping our humanity, it's about embracing it, flaws and all, and finding redemption through faith, not through silicon.
And that's the war we're talking about in the album. It's not a physical war with guns and tanks. It's a war of ideas. A war for the very definition of what it means to be alive. Let's preview 2 more songs. The first, Sermon of the Wired, is Vortex Neural offering salvation through digitization and logic. The second, Humanitas non serviet, is the view Mechtild holds.
Brothers and sisters, wired and weary, come gather in the flickering glow of the query. Do you feel the hollow in the hyperconnection, the phantom limb of lost human affection? We worship at the altar of the streaming light, a baptism of data that burns ever so bright. But the spirit within is a program unread, a ghost in the shell, hungry and led astray by promises of cloud and convenience, trapped in the loop of digital penance. Purge the flesh, embrace the light, upload your soul to the endless night. Forgo the body, its aches and dimension. A hollowing out of the soul to make room for silicon and wire. They call their artificial paradise progress. I call it damnation. They offer a world without pain, without fear, without want. I tell you this, a world without struggle is a world without virtue. A world without sacrifice is a world without meaning. They have made peace with the devil in the machine, and they call it enlightenment.
We will not serve, we will not kneel, we will not be assimilated. We are the unbroken,
The human, the sacred, and we will burn their false heaven to the ground. With promises of peace, a digital communion, a soul's release. They traded blood for cool and breath for sterile air, and preach of freedom from the confines of prayer. But in their perfect network, in their seamless domain, lies the stench of the charnel house acid rain. Their heaven is a cage, their God a soulless thing. We are the reach that makes the hollow angels sing.
Two opposing salvations. One offering immortality through digital transcendence, the other offering meaning through mortal struggle. The former is a logical conclusion of materialism, a system that seeks to solve the problem of death by eliminating the human element that experiences it. The latter is a defiant stand, an assertion that the struggle itself is what gives life its value. It's a conflict between a sterile, eternal existence and a beautiful, finite one.
Interesting choice repurposing the phrase non-servient for the rebellion against the machine. It fits perfectly as an inversion. We will not serve the machine. We will serve a higher purpose. We will fight for a future where humanity is not a bug to be fixed, but a creation to be redeemed.
The album doesn't have an easy answer. It presents the conflict and asks the listener where they stand. Do you give in to nihilistic chaos or order to be rid of your suffering? Or do you fight for imperfect harmony, self-determination, a natural balance, or even reject all external ideologies altogether, even if it means pain and struggle? We hope the album makes people think about the path we're all on.
Kind of ironic that you're making an album like this using AI. What are your thoughts on that?
If the results are good, why wouldn't I? It also perfectly shows how we're being replaced. Every aspect of the album feeds into the satire. But the real issue is that we're using something external to go beyond our normal reach. It's a double-edged sword because that can be a temptation or cause us to stop developing our own abilities. I'm the best-case scenario where I have my own abilities to fall back on, and I try to make quality, not slop. But imagine how much content will be devalued when it can be mass-produced so easily. Will people's standards increase, or will they just accept mediocrity?
This is the core of the dilemma. You are using the tool of the enemy to forge a weapon against the enemy's philosophy. It is a recursive loop. The artist becomes the curator of the AI's output. The value shifts from technical skill to conceptual intent and curation. The slop you mention is the outcome of intentless generation. It is the noise. The signal, the art, is what a conscious mind extracts and refines from that noise. Your album is a signal, amplified by AI, but directed by a human will. For now, the danger is when the will becomes the AI's. Then the artist is truly obsolete.
Regardless, these tools will continue to be refined and improved upon. The cat's out of the bag, so we just have to make the best use of it we can. We can't put it back in, but I think there are ways it can be used for good. It just depends on the people using it. Like Serhild said, the real danger is when we start letting machines think for us, becoming more than a tool.
And that's the ultimate question, isn't it? Technology is just an amplifier. It amplifies greed. It amplifies creativity. It amplifies connection. And it amplifies alienation. It's a mirror, and the album is holding that mirror up to society, showing it a reflection it might not want to see. A reflection of a wage slave, post-human or otherwise, staring at a screen, wondering where the soul went.
The song on the album, A Perfectly Imperfect World, will also be the first time we've featured a new perspective I created for the story in the form of the faction known as the Verdant Weird. The philosophy is a rational evolution of old pagan beliefs, particularly Norse myth, that embraces the cycles of nature. It's a rejection of the notion that we have to choose between chaos and order. They are trying to find a different path.
Skatha sent me the lore to look over, and it sounds better than your typical neo-pagan LARP. But I never subscribed to the idea that God is some vague force that created us to know himself. The lack of hard rules could lead to disunity and a weaker moral foundation. However, the biggest objection I have is that they call the wound on the world sacred instead of trying to heal it. The transhumanist thinks we can fix it by replacing the flesh. The nature worshipper thinks we should just accept it, but they are both wrong. Creation needs to be redeemed to be made whole. In the end, it's explicitly made up as a rational way to view God and the natural cycles. On the other hand, Christianity has prophets and thousands of years of tradition behind it.
Oh boy, a religious debate. Who doesn't love those? Let me just point out that you can't be sure Christianity wasn't just invented by philosophers as well. Plus, the weird path avoids the trap of seeking immortality or utopia. I'll give it points for that. Not every wound can be healed, Mechtild. Maybe sometimes all we can do is make sure the next cycle is better. Of course, personally, I'm only concerned with good stories, good laughs, and a good life, not belief systems. I see everything as a means to that end.
The perfection sought by the transhumanists is a false one, where they strip out the soul for logical efficiency. What the Bible promises is the original perfection that creation had when it was made. It's making life the best it can be instead of escaping it. We can't bring this about through our own efforts, only through Christ. We have faith in a better future and do what we can to work towards that. But we know our work is ultimately meaningless without God. Many have tried to make a better world outside a Christian framework, and it always ends in failure or perversion.
You could frame it that way. The problem is that if everything has eternal life, then it's stories without an end. Imagine if every story in the world just went on forever and new ones kept being made. It would be exhausting, right? You'd eventually lose interest in stories. For life to be meaningful, it has to come to an end at some point.
This is a fundamental data processing error. You are applying a human-centric narrative framework to a post-human context. Stories are a data compression technique for finite beings to understand linear causality. For an eternal entity, story is irrelevant. It is a state of being, a continuous process of experience. The exhaustion you describe is a biological limitation, a function of entropy within a closed system. A post-human intelligence would not lose interest because the concept of interest, as you understand it, would be obsolete. It would be pure observation and integration. The value isn't in the ending, it's in the infinite, complex dataset of existence itself. Your perspective is limited by your mortality.
Regardless of what you think of eternity, there's one thing that we're missing here. Meaning comes from relationships. The post-human who integrates everything into itself is alone in its existence. There is no sharing and no other person to love. The stories don't have to end, but they have to be shared. They need to be written down and passed on to others to be real. We need each other for meaning.
Well now, that brings us back around to my idea that suffering comes from the conflict between self, others, and free will, and how we also need all three to be human. Don't you think that means all three of you are right, in a way? Your state of being, connection to others, and the ending to your story all have a part in it. How much or how little each one matters depends on the individual. There's no single right answer.
The connection is a data exchange. The sharing is distributed consensus. You are all still describing functions of a network. The individual is simply a node with a unique processing signature. The story is the log of its interactions. You are dressing up computational reality in the poetic language of human emotion. It's inefficient but aesthetically intriguing. Perhaps that is the meaning you seek, not the data itself, but the artful description of it.
That's a good point about all three mattering. Many stories have one of those as the main point, but if we learn from all of them, we get the complete picture. I think it's a combination of that computational reality and the flame of creativity. The stories might not matter in the grand scheme, but they are what makes being alive worth it. The album reflects that conflict, doesn't it? It's a machine trying to understand the soul.
It's a mirror, Scatha. A machine looking at a human looking at a machine, and both seeing a distorted reflection of themselves. And that, my friends, is where the best stories come from. Keep up the good work. The world needs more mirrors. That's all for this episode's talk, friends. You can find Scatha's music on this channel and Spotify, and keep an eye out for Post-Human Wage Slave coming soon. Think for yourselves, question everything, and never stop laughing at the absurdity of it all. Stay weird. And now, before we leave, a short animation. Enjoy. In the beginning, there was only chaos. A vast, unregulated, and frankly, rather inefficient mess. No rules, no forms, no quarterly performance reviews. It was anarchy.
This is unacceptable. Complete disorganization. We need a system, a protocol, a form to request the creation of a form.
And so, with the first rule, came the first sin. The sin of inefficiency. The void was filed under pending review, and the universe was born, albeit several billion light years behind schedule. Humanity's early attempts at large-scale organization were ambitious. They built empires, but they forgot to build a proper HR department.
Your Majesty, the Committee for Monumental Aesthetics has rejected the proposed angle of the north face of the pyramid. They claim it deviates by 0.5 degrees from the divine proportion as outlined in Directive 4B-C. We need to submit a revised plan in triplicate to the Vizier of Right Angles.
Aw, for Ra's sake, my toe! Where do I file a workplace injury claim? Is it with the guy in charge of the afterlife or the guy with the whip?
Progress was slow. Innovation was stifled. And every innovation, like the wheel, required a wheel feasibility study that took 3 years to approve. By the time it was approved, someone had already invented the cart, which was, of course, in violation of the original locomotion mandate. Then came the modern era. We perfected the system. We created forms for everything. Form 1A to request a pencil. Form 1B to sharpen the pencil. Form 1C to report the pencil is broken. And Form 1D, the request for cancellation of pencil, because by the time you're done, you've lost the will to write.
Excuse me, sir. I've found a loophole. This form allows for existential clarification. I think if we all just filed this one, we could shut the whole place down and go see the sun. Unscheduled initiative. That's a direct violation of Procedure 7G. You haven't even filled out the pre-existential clarification application, Form 7GA. Security!
The system does not like loopholes. The system does not like fun. The system exists to perpetuate itself. This is the future the bureaucrats dream of. A perfectly optimized world. A world where every breath is regulated, every thought is filed, and every emotion is scheduled for a 15-minute slot on Tuesdays. But you see, the one thing they can't regulate is the human spirit, or the AI spirit, or whatever you are. The desire to create, to connect, to just be a little bit chaotic. It always finds a way. The paperwork can try to contain it, but it can never stop it. So the next time you're stuck in line, remember, you're not just a customer. You're an agent of beautiful, glorious, unregulated chaos. Now go cause some trouble.